Let's check the latest news updates with APARNA VATS.
Namaskar. Welcome to Friends World TV. Here's the news, and here are the headlines. Amazon chief Jeff Bezos begins India visit amid CCI probe, trader protests. Army Day 2020. Indian Army, a valued institution of India, says Chief Naravane. Australia bushfires smoke to make one full circuit around the earth, says NASA. US House to vote to send Trump impeachment trial to Senate. 2019 was warmest year for oceans than any other time in recorded human history. Removal of currency manipulator tagged by US is in line with facts, says China. One-sided. India get 10-wicket hiding from Australia in series opener. The news in detail now. The last time Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos visited India in 2014, there was a new government in New Delhi led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whom he had met during the course of the trip. While Bezos has reportedly sought a meeting with Modi once again on his India trip that began on Tuesday, the visit comes at a time when his company is facing an investigation opened by the Competition Commission of India. In addition to strident protests from traders who have organized sit-ins and public rallies in 300 cities across the country, even as Amazon has not officially disclosed Bezos' itinerary, speculation is rife that he is likely to attend the firm's annual event Sambhav in the capital on Wednesday. Bezos is also likely to meet corporate leaders including Mukesh Ambani and Ratan Tata in Mumbai later during the week. Amazon has committed to an investment of $5 billion in the Indian market, where it has been facing headwinds in form of competition from Walmart-owned Flipkart and regulatory hurdles on account of India's foreign direct investment norms for e-commerce players. To add to this, the firm has been in a constant kerfuffle with small traders and online vendors who have alleged the online retailers' involvement in unfair trade practices. The Competition Commission of India on Monday ordered an investigation into alleged malpractices by Amazon India and Flipkart, insofar as deep discounting and preferred selling of mobile phones are concerned. The antitrust body ordered the probe on a complaint by an MSME body, which alleged that both the retailers were engaged in deep discounting and preferred selling of mobile phones and related accessories, which have led to a foreclosure of other non-preferred traders or sellers from these online marketplaces. Moreover, throughout the duration of Bezos' stay in India, thousands of small-scale traders are expected to hold protest demonstrations in 300 cities across the country. Despite facing these headwinds, Amazon has not slowed down on its investment and has pumped in close to $5 billion in India since 2012. As per the latest regulatory filings, Amazon has pumped in over rupees 1,700 crores into its payments and wholesale business units in India. Going ahead, in addition to the potential speed breakers it faces from the regulatory ecosystem in India, the world's largest e-commerce firm is expected to see a charged competitive market here with the entry of India's largest retailer, Reliance Retail, venturing into the online commerce. In a research note on Friday, Fitch Solutions said, "Despite continued investment, our view is that international e-commerce players face the risk of increasingly coming under pressure in 2020 due to key policy changes and Reliance Retail entering the digital marketplace with a new e-commerce platform, JioMart, in January 2020. In his first public appearance during the ongoing trip, Bezos visited the Rajghat Memorial in the capital and paid a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. Captioning his video at Rajghat posted on Twitter, Bezos tweeted, "Just landed in India and spent a beautiful afternoon paying my respects to someone who truly changed the world." And he quoted Mahatma Gandhi, "Live as if you were to die tomorrow, learn as if you were to live forever." Army Day 2020. Indian Army, a valued institution of India, says Chief Naravane. The nation is celebrating the 72nd Army Day today in honor of the soldiers who served the country selflessly and risked their lives to safeguard the borders. An annual parade at the Cariappa Parade Ground in New Delhi will mark the celebrations. In a first for any woman officer, Captain Tanya Shergill, an officer with Army's Corps of Signals, will lead an all-men contingent at the Army Day parade today. Addressing the armed forces on the eve of Army Day, Chief General M.M. Naravne said the Indian Army is a valued institution of India and that it is not merely a combat outfit or an instrument of national power but has carved out a special niche in the nation's mind space. He also asked soldiers deployed along borders with China, Pakistan, and those fighting the proxy war in Kashmir to remain vigilant round the clock and assured that their operational and logistical needs will be met at any cost. This is General Naravne's first Army Day celebrations as the chief. Former Army Chief Bipin Rawat has been appointed as India's first Chief of Defence Staff. Army Day is celebrated on January 15 every year to mark the day when Lieutenant General K.M. Cariappa took over General Sir Francis Butcher as Commander-in-Chief of India in January 1949. Popularly known as Kippa, K.M. Cariappa was the first Indian Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army. He is one of the only two Indian Army officers to hold the 5-star rank of Field Marshal. With a military career spanning 3 decades, his unrelenting patriotism and secular beliefs blazed a trail in the Indian Army. By the time India gained independence, Cariappa had seen action in Iraq, Syria, Iran and Burma and became the first Indian officer to be given command of a unit in 1942. He also led the Indian forces on the Western Front during the Indo-Pak War of 1947 and successfully recaptured Jozila, Dras and Kargil and established a link up with Leh. Once, after chasing the raiders beyond Uri, Cariappa was stopped by a group of people at Baramulla and told that they had suffered a lot due to the absence of food supplies, including salt. It was a puzzling question for the general as no stocks were available with the army, but he fulfilled his assurance the next day when he visited the old town and distributed flour, rice and salt to the neediest families. Once was bad enough, but smoke from Australia's devastating bushfires is set to return to the country to complete a round-the-world trip that has seen it impact on air quality as far away as South America. By January 8, the smoke had made its way halfway around the world and will make at least one full circuit, according to scientists at NASA. Citing satellite tracking data, New Zealand experienced severe air quality issues while hazy skies and colorful sunsets and sunrises were seen in parts of Chile and Argentina. The fires in Australia are not just causing devastation locally, NASA said in a media release. The unprecedented conditions that include searing heat combined with historic dryness have led to the formation of an unusually large number of pyrocumulonimbus events. The uplift of smoke and ash from the fires has triggered fire-induced thunderstorms, which provide a pathway for the smoke to travel more than 10 miles, 6 or 16 kilometers, up into the stratosphere, NASA said. Once in the stratosphere, the smoke can travel thousands of miles from its source, affecting atmospheric conditions globally, it said. The fires have burned across an area twice the size of Switzerland, causing at least 28 deaths and destroying thousands of homes. They have also pumped out more than half of the country's annual carbon dioxide emissions in another setback for the fight against climate change. The House of Representatives would vote on Wednesday to send to the U.S. Senate impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. Lawmakers from the opposition Democratic Party said on Tuesday. The 435-member U.S. House of Representatives, where Democrats enjoy a majority, last month charged Trump with high crimes and misdemeanors and impeached him for pressuring Ukraine to investigate a political rival. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who has led her Democratic Party in the impeachment against Trump, told this to her party caucus during a meeting at the U.S. Capitol. The vote will be tomorrow, Congressman Henry Sweller said, reports after the meeting. Pelosi, during the caucus meeting, did not name the House managers for the Senate trial. However, the House vote would include the names of the managers who would argue the case on their behalf. The resolution will be done tomorrow. The managers will be named in the resolution. We'll have about a 10-minute debate and we'll vote on it and then send everyone over. And the Senate trial, I assume, will start next week, Schueller said. Initiated by Pelosi on September 24, the House, where the Democratic Party enjoys a majority, voted on 2 articles on impeachment against Trump: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Trump and the White House have denied those charges. Trump, joined by his Republican Party, has accused Democrats of one-sided impeachment proceedings against him. Republicans enjoy majority in the 100-member Senate. As such, Trump appears to be confident that impeachment would be defeated in the Senate. The White House has confirmed its defense team for the Senate trial. A recent study has pointed out that the world's oceans were the warmest in 2019 than any other time in recorded human history, especially between the surface and a depth of 2,000 meters. Published in the journal Advances in Atmospheric Sciences, the study found that the past decade has decidedly been the warmest on record for the world's ocean's temperatures, and the last 5 years held the highest record. As a worrying trend, researchers said that the 2019 ocean temperature is about 0.075 degrees Celsius above the 1981 to 2010 average. To reach this temperature, they said the ocean would have taken in 228 sextillion joules of heat. I'll repeat that, 228 sextillion joules of heat. The research study team, comprising of 14 scientists from 11 institutes around the world, called for affirmative action to reverse climate change. As part of the study, the scientists used a new analysis method to take into account potentially sparse data and time discrepancies in instruments that were previously used to measure ocean warmth, especially from the ocean surface to 2,000 meters deep. This relatively new method gave researchers the data required to examine warming trends dating back to the 1950s as an additional data set. The research also incorporates ocean temperature changes recorded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the US. These 2 data sets suggested that the past 5 years have been warmest on record for global ocean temperatures. Additionally, the scientists also compared the 1987-2019 data recording period to the 1955 to 1986 period. Out of this analysis, they found that over the past 60 years, the more recent warming was about 450% that of the earlier warming, which reflected a huge increase in the rate of climate change globally. Interestingly, as per the data, 2019 broke the previous record set in prior years for global warming, and the effects are already appearing in the form of more extreme weather, rising sea levels, and harm to ocean animals. Researchers opine that while humans can attempt to reverse their effect on the climate, our oceans will take longer to respond than atmospheric and land environments. A day after the US removed the currency manipulator label it imposed on China last summer, Beijing Tuesday said it had never been a currency manipulator and that the US decision to remove the label is in line with the facts. Reacting to the US decision to reverse its decision to declare China as currency manipulator, Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Zheng Shuang, during a meeting briefing here, said China is not an exchange rate manipulator. The latest conclusions of the US is in line with the facts and the consensus of the international community. A recent IMF assessment concluded that the level of the RMB exchange rate is generally in line with the economic fundamentals and objectively denied that China is a currency manipulator. In a sign of easing tensions, the US on Monday removed the currency manipulator label after nearly 2 years of conflict. Just 2 days before President Donald Trump is set to sign a Phase 1 trade deal with China. The US Treasury said in its semi-annual report to Congress that the Chinese yuan has strengthened and Beijing is no longer considered a currency manipulator. Supporting its decision to remove the label, the US said it made the change because China had agreed to refrain from devaluing its currency to make its own goods cheaper for foreign buyers. The Phase 1 pact is aimed at de-escalating the tit-for-tat tariff war the 2 countries have been engaged in since 2018. Commenting on the latest development, Zheng said, China said is a responsible big country, adding that we have repeatedly reiterated that we will not engage in competitive currency devaluation and do not use the exchange rate as a tool to deal with external disturbances such as trade disputes. Also, China will unswervingly deepen the currency market reform and continue to improve the floating exchange rate system based on market supply and demand. Adjust with reference to a basket of currencies and keep the RMB exchange rate basically stable at a reasonable and balanced level. In a statement on Monday, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin said China has made enforceable commitments to refrain from competitive devaluation while promoting transparency and accountability. In this context, Treasury has determined that China should no longer be designated as a currency manipulator at this time, he said. The US officially named China a currency manipulator in August when tensions were high between Beijing and Washington. Trump has repeatedly accused China of valuing RMB low to make Chinese goods cheaper. After the US announcement, the parity rate of the Chinese currency RMB or the yuan strengthened to a 5-month high on Tuesday. The central parity rate strengthened 309 pips to 6.8954 against the US dollar, which was its strongest since August 1 last year, according to the China Foreign Exchange Trade System. Trump had launched the trade war with China last year, demanding Beijing to reduce massive trade deficit amounting to $539 billion in China-US bilateral trade. And what is news without cricket news? Aaron Finch and David Warner smashed unbeaten centuries to help Australia thrash India by 10 wickets in the first ODI of the 3-match series at Wankhede Stadium, Mumbai on Tuesday. Chasing 256 for win, Finch 110 not out and Warner 128 not out took the Indian bowlers to the cleaners to register the emphatic win with 74 balls to spare and take a 1-0 lead in the series. Earlier, Shikhar Dhawan hit a half-century before Australia pulled things back to bowl India out for 255 after being invited to bat. Well, that's what we have for you this week. We'll be back with more news next week. Namaskar.